Hi, I'm Dr. Sora Dubitsky, and I'm here again with my dear friend Caro. And today's topic is birth control, and it's a hot topic, especially for young women. There's been a lot of movement on the internet to influence young women to get off birth control pills, hormonal birth control pills. And since I no longer need birth control pills, I am turning this segment over to Caro, and I have some questions for her because she and her contemporaries are greatly influenced by the topic in general. So introduce yourself, please.
My name is Caro, and I'm currently studying psychology at Florida International University. But to start off, go ahead with the questions that you have for me.
Okay, I want to ask you, you have told me that you have gone off the birth control pill. Can you tell me why and what influenced you to do that?
I didn't find the need to be on it anymore just because I had stopped being in a relationship and overall didn't feel like it was necessary anymore for me. But in the moment when I was taking it, I didn't realize the effects that I was having in itself. A lot of the time, I also thought it was about my development because I'm obviously still at a young age and my brain is still developing. But based on all the research that you and I have both done on birth control and contraception, it's become very clear to me that the birth control pill didn't only have side effects in my emotional life, because it definitely did in the aspect of how I felt on my day-to-day basis, how I would react to certain situations, how sensitive I became. But it would also sometimes make me feel physically strange. I would have sometimes strange side effects, like weird pain, weird areas. I would get tired very easily. And a lot of the time I thought it was because I had like low iron levels, but it was really due to the pill. And I realize that now, and I'm glad I got off of it because even aside from the pill in general, I don't like taking medication too often because I think it creates a dependency for us physically as humans, and it's just really not healthy to take pills daily, I would say.
So what you just said, ties into some of the arguments the influencers are using in order to encourage young women to get off the pill. So how do you feel since you've been off it?
I feel a lot of the time that I'm discovering myself more and more each day. I feel a lot more energetic, open, and for someone who doesn't drink coffee, feeling energetic is nice, obviously. I feel like life has become very clarifying in a way. Like a lot of things that didn't seem clear to me before seem clear to me now. So in that aspect, I feel like the pill may have affected me more emotionally or cognitively rather than physically.
Here's some of the arguments that influencers are using. And you repeated some of these. The first argument they make is natural is better. Influencers often promote natural cycles or fertility as safer and healthier. Fertility tracking is safer and healthier. However, these methods are less effective with typical use. The failure rates are 12 to 24% compared to 1% for implants, IUDs, and sterilization. Now, we haven't spoken about the IUD yet. But we have spoken about the hormonal birth control, and that's also about 99% effective with 1% failure rate. Side effects are real. Hormonal contraception can cause mood changes, weight fluctuation, or libido shifts, but can also reduce acne, menstrual pain, and endometriosis symptoms and ovarian cancer risk. A third thing, it's called algorithm amplification, meaning they pump the idea of fear, emotional fear-based posts about hormone detox, big pharma lies. The pharmaceutical industry is lying to you. You are responsible for your own health. You mentioned you're not in a relationship now, but what would you do if you were in a relationship and an IUD, or there are hormone-free IUDs, and yes, they have side effects, but they have a less than 99% effectiveness rate. So that means they are effective 99% of the time. Then anything hormonal is highly effective. For example, though, a male condom at best, it with, there's typical use and then there's perfect use, and no one uses anything perfectly. But a male condom, well, this data is saying, 13% effective with typical use, perfect use, 2%. The figure I have been reading, for years now is at 80% effective. That means there's a 20% chance of getting pregnant. The diaphragm cap, 17% failure rate, um, for perfect use, 4%. These influencers, they're pushing or marketing or telling women to use their calendars so you could keep track of your periods. The calendar method is maybe 20% effective. And there was a story in the New York Times just recently about this, about women going off the pill. And the one story that they had was this woman, she went off the pill, she talked about it to her boyfriend. 4 months later, she was pregnant. So my question to you is, what else are you doing to keep yourself safe? And I say safe because I'm sure, from what I know of you, you have your own goals, you have your life, you want to do things. How are you ensuring that what you want to do with your life isn't going to be interrupted by getting pregnant?
That's a good question, and you're completely right. I definitely don't want to get pregnant right now. I'm a college student, so definitely not something that I would want, especially not in this economy. Honestly, I haven't really thought about it so much, considering that right now I don't feel like it's a large problem in my life, in the aspect of thinking about what contraceptive to use. But I would say that a lot of the times people resort to either condoms or the pull-out method, quote unquote,
Not everybody pulls out when they're supposed to.
right? And then that is a big mistake. Um,
Yes, it is
yeah.
a big mistake.
And like you were saying, the calendar thing, a lot of the time I
Hmm.
notice that women track their periods in order
Hmm.
to find out when their fertility window is or their ovulation window. I think that that can be also ideal for people who want to like avoid getting pregnant. In my case, I think that I would most likely resort to condoms because it just seems like the most reliable thing that isn't so invasive. Even though you said like IUDs are not hormonal, like they have those side effects, and I just feel like putting something inside
Hmm.
like that is just not something I would be comfortable with. I have also seen a lot of studies about how the latex in condoms is actually pretty harmful for the anatomy of the woman.
Some people are allergic to latex, and I honestly have not heard that it's harmful to the woman, but some men are allergic to latex, and men don't like it. The comment is it's like shaking hands with your gloves on. In other words, it's riskier.
Yeah.
You have to stop, put on a condom. Have you considered a female condom?
I've never tried one, but I have heard of them. I know that they exist. Um, and obviously, if it comes to the time where me and my partner want to attempt using that, then I would be okay with that. I just don't feel like I would feel comfortable using something that affects my hormones, like how the pill.
What about, I'm sorry, what about emergency contraception? If you thought you got pregnant up to 72 hours and it would be effective.
Been told that a lot of people actually use Plan B, but I'm not sure how effective it necessarily is. I haven't really looked into it. But if I was put in a situation where I made a bad decision and there's a possibility of me getting pregnant, especially at this time and age, I would take the risk and just take Plan B because it's much more expensive to have a baby than it is to buy a pill. So at the end of the day, I think that that's definitely the best bet. It's not something that is preferable, but as you say, it's an emergency, so you want to take action, I would say.
Right. It's an emergency. Would you ever consider tubal ligation, sterilization, and or abstinence? The safest way to not get pregnant, or the most effective way to not get pregnant, is to not have sex.
Well, that's my
Yeah, have
current
you
situation.
considered that?
Abstinence is my current state, I would say.
It,
So in a way, yes. But a lot of times, people get into relationships and they're like, hey, I want to show my love to my partner, and that's completely understandable. And in that case, there has to be measures taken so that mistakes don't happen, especially expensive ones like babies.
I had my tube side. I had tubal ligation. So I made sure I would never have children, and that was a choice. And at the time, it was kind of a dramatic choice because it was out of the norm. Because women my age were having babies, and I wasn't having babies. If you right now, do you think you want to have children?
Not right now, maybe in the future. It just kind of depends on where my life is, what my life looks like. But I would say that tying your tubes is definitely a good resort since considering that it's undoable. My mom got her tubes tied after having me, her last child.
Have you considered or looked into something like a diaphragm with a sperm with a spermicidal gel? I that was something I used for years until I had my tubes tied. And I never had children, so it was effective, but it's this kind of thing where you have to use it perfectly every time. So have you looked into methods like that?
I feel like it's a little more uncommon and unknown.
Well, so many women have been on the pill, they forgot about this. You would have to get a prescription through a doctor because you have to be fitted for it. And it has to fit perfectly and it covers the cervix. You have to go to a gynecologist and he'll put different rings into your vaginal tract until he finds one that covers the cervix completely. And so you have to order it. But
Okay.
it's non-invasive, but it's like sticking a tampon inside, although it's round and there are other barrier methods and they work similarly. They cover the cervix. The O pill, you have to take at the same time every day. It is a daily dose. Progestin only pill. The young men of the young men have any of them thought about or have you asked about if they would consider male contraception?
There's
Because
only one male I actually know who has considered it. I don't know if he went through with it. Not really my business, I guess. But I'm aware that he has thought about it and considered it before. But I feel like it's something that a lot of people don't necessarily even think about most of the time, which is honestly kind of unfair because a lot of the time I feel like the woman is the one who has to get out of her way, to put something evasive in herself or risk, messing with her hormones just to not become pregnant. When at the end of the day, the sperm is, you know, the reason why we get pregnant, like in a way, like it's like the cause. So I feel like the man,
No kidding.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Men are the cause of pregnancy.
So I think a lot of the times in a relationship, at least, when because sometimes people have sex and they have pregnancies and they're not even together. But in the aspect of a relationship, I feel like it's something that should be talked about because a lot of the time, also, if the woman has health concerns, maybe it's not a smart decision to get on something that can affect her hormones. Even when it comes to mental health disorders, it can get out of control, I would assume.
The way it works, it's hormonal. So it's got two hormones in it. The first one is something called nesterone, and that diminishes the amount of sperm that are made in the testicles. And there's added testosterone. It gives more energy, it's like the hunting hormone and muscles need it. So it's a requirement of the body, but between those two hormones, you get a reduction of sperm being made in the testes. And then you get the additional testosterone. So those side effects of feeling bloated and feeling tired and gaining weight are held to a minimum. And it's been proven in clinical trials. It's just been proven to be very effective. Once a woman reaches puberty, she drops an egg every month. Men make 15,000 sperm every second. A single ejaculate can have anywhere from 100 million to up to 500 million sperm. There's only one that makes it, but there's also just a single egg. Those 15,000 every second sperm, all those sperm. And I just always found that statistic kind of skewed. If men can impregnate women and have so much, they keep churning them out. Why aren't we looking at controlling sperm?
Great question.
It's important for young people to be able to make choices consciously, to know the consequences. Behavior has consequences, and if somebody is not on birth control pill or not using one of these very, very effective methods like an IUD or hormonal birth control. And I do wonder, municipalities being concerned that we're not making enough babies. The replacement rates have dropped, meaning there's not enough babies being born to, take care of future generations. I wonder if that's kind of mixed in with the messages young people are getting.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to add up considering that there are less people getting pregnant, and less babies being made. I think a lot of it is also because of the economy and how a lot of people can't even afford living on their own, unless like affording their own needs. How are they going to afford having a child? And it's
Hmm.
crazy because it's like I even see some people that I graduated high school with, and like they're like 6, 7 months pregnant. I'm like, how are you going to afford that child?
It's right, exactly. Yes, there's all kinds of reasons not to bring children into the world right now. The economy and the money is the one primarily given. Whether you use a pill, a patch, a ring, an IUD, a condom, or nothing at all, the most important thing is that it's your decision made with accurate information and full consent and aligns with your deepest values, goals, and objectives from what you want in your life. If this conversation sparked something in you, share this episode, follow us here at Birds, Bees, and Beyond, or you can follow my work on Substack. And the links are below in the show notes.
Okay, we'll see you soon.
Thank you. But see you soon. Bye.